what's the cost of raising a child? What should you expect and be ready for? Joining me today to talk about the cost of raising a child is certified financial planner Barbara Boucher. Barbara, what's the average cost of raising a child?
Well, the average cost in the Northeast happens to be a little bit more expensive than the rest of the country. So currently, based on statistics, it's around $222,000 between now and when the child is 17, or on an average, around $11,000 a year per child. That's assuming that you make $50,000 or less a year. The gross median income in the United States household is around $50,000.
Wow.
If you earn between $50,000 and $90,000, the average cost is a little bit more expensive per child. It's more like $14,000 a year.
So if
and that does not include college.
Wow.
This is just housing, clothing, food, health, childcare.
So if you break it down, how much does it cost a month?
Well, roughly about $1,000 a month,
Okay.
roughly.
Okay.
Mhm.
And what's the most expensive? Is it daycare, food? Like, how do you break it down, and how do you know what to expect? Like, what's the most expensive thing?
Right. Well, based on statistics, it's around 30% is housing.
Wow.
Believe it or not. The next is child care, which is around 16-17%. And so those are the, and then the next is food. And believe it or not, it's become less expensive as a percentage with food over the years due to agriculture, and our packaging of our food is cheaper. So 30% is housing, and then the next is 16% child care.
And that's not
16.
even including college?
No, that does not include
Wow.
college. This is just to feed them, clothe them, house them, transport them.
Wow. So now let's talk about ages a little bit.
Okay.
What is probably the most expensive? I mean, I'm assuming probably when they're younger.
I know. You would think that it might be
Right.
more expensive when they're younger, but based on the averages, it says that it's actually a little bit more expensive when they're older.
Really?
And the reason is, remember, 30% is housing.
Right.
So when your children are young, they share bunk beds or share bedrooms, but when they get older and they're teenagers, they want their own room. And so the housing cost gets a little bit more expensive, due to having the children.
Wow.
So, and of course, education. So.
Wow. So what's your advice for parents? Because often you hear parents say, we're not having a kid yet because we're not ready for it. We
Right.
need to save. We need to save.
I think the important thing is to be prepared and to plan. So if you have solid incomes and you can afford the $1,000 a month, then maybe you don't need to save in advance. But in general, as a financial planner, I always recommend to clients that make sure you have a good slush fund of 6 months income in general. And especially if you're going into having a child, there might be some, unplanned expenses in the beginning with a child, or, you're seeking advice and taking a look at things and getting adjusted, and maybe one spouse is at home more than the other. You're all adapting and getting used to having the child.
Right. So the average cost says that it's from when they're born until they're 17. That's the
Yes.
average. But
Yes.
in reality, does it really have an end?
Actually, I've been doing financial planning for 25 years, and it never ends. I mean, even counseling my clients that are retired is interesting, because parents want to keep giving to their children, and you love them and you want to help them out. And when they retire, the amount of money that they might needed to have saved is a lot, and it seems like a lot in current day numbers. So like if I'm 60 or 65 and I had this amount of money, I feel like, oh my gosh, I have more than I need. But that money was planned from now until age 90 or 95, and of course the amount you'll need to take from it will increase over the years. So you find this very delicate period where parents still want to give certain things to their children, and yet as a financial planner, I oftentimes need to caution them and say, if you give now, you're going to possibly suffer later, and which would you rather have? Showing up on your child's doorstep 20 years from now broke, and hoping and praying they might take you in, and then you're dependent upon them. So you lose your dignity and yourself and your independence and how you want to live your life. And so these things need to be weighed constantly. So taking care of a child is a lifetime commitment.
Right.
But one needs to, factor everything in and prepare and be aware of what it really is going to cost too.
And plan, and
Yes.
be ready for it. So what resources are there available for parents if they're deciding whether or not they want to go ahead and have a child, and if they're ready, if they have enough money, what resources are there available?
Well, if you, with the internet today and so much information, if you just go on and you put in cost to raise a child, you would be surprised how many websites are going to pop up. And they're very easy and user-friendly. And there will be calculators on how to figure out what it costs a child. They'll give you, there's certain studies and surveys which will tell you exactly of a dollar what percentage goes to all the different categories, so you can kind of become aware of where are my money's going to go and how do I plan for this, And then, of course, the different programs, like I mentioned at one point, there are savings plans within work called cafeteria plans or 125 plans where you can put $5,000 in for dependent care.
Wow.
And this is with before tax dollars. So there's all kinds of things that are nifty that'll come up and help you with this. And of course, if you work with an advisor, you can just ask them,
Stress-free for you.
Yes.
Well, Barbara, thank you so much. And if you would like to learn more about the topic or have a question for Barbara, just log on to our website, parentologywithpaula.com.